Today's agenda is packed with urgent matters and things are escalating fast. The storms are intensifying at an alarming rate, causing widespread concern. Meanwhile, in Los Angeles, the fires are proving to be more difficult to contain than ever before. As the storm's intensity rises, so does the fury of the flames. It's a race against time, as we must keep a constant eye on both the storm's development and the spreading fires, which seem to grow stronger with each passing hour. The situation is rapidly becoming critical and the pressure is mounting to act swiftly and decisively. We're on the edge and every moment counts as we navigate this volatile situation. Focusing on extremely cold temperatures, especially in the medium to long term, we expect the second half of January to be very cold with the possibility of snowstorms in areas that have seen minimal snow so far. This includes parts of New England, which have struggled with snowfall, as well as the mid-Atlantic and Northeast. The Southeast and mid-Atlantic aren't out of the running for snow either, as we're entering a very cold pattern combined with above average precipitation. This creates the potential for southern snowfall throughout the rest of January. Let's discuss the details. We'll start with the National Weather Service's 6 to 10 day outlook. During the time frame of January 16th to 20th, we expect periods of warm days in the east, which will keep temperatures from falling too far below average overall. However, there will be colder days mixed in, resulting in a bit of an up and down pattern for a while. Moving into the medium to long term, conditions are expected to turn consistently colder. This shift will also bring colder temperatures to the west, which has experienced a lot of positive Pacific North American PNA patterns this winter. A cool down in the west hasn't happened for a while, so this change will be noteworthy. Meanwhile, southern Texas is one of the only regions expected to remain warmer than average from January 16th to 20th. Regarding precipitation, the east is expected to see a surge of activity during the short to medium range, January 16th to 20th. Storms are likely to track through this region, creating opportunities for snowfall. The primary snow threat will come from systems moving down from the north, while the west will remain cold. Much of it will stay relatively dry, except for the Rockies and Plains, which could see above average precipitation. Looking at the 8 to 14 day temperature outlook on January 18th to 24th, we anticipate a potential polar vortex event, which could bring multiple Arctic blasts. This pattern resembles the early January conditions, with cold weather expected in the west at times and on the east coast at other times. However, the north central region will likely experience the coldest conditions. In the east, above average precipitation during this period further increases the likelihood of snowfall for the south, mid-Atlantic, and northeast. This time frame, particularly from January 16th to 24th, seems favorable for at least one or two snowstorms, though nothing is guaranteed. The west will remain drier overall, while the Rockies should see significant snowfall under this setup. The 3 to 4 week outlook covering January 25th to February 7th indicates colder air moving from the north central U.S. into the Ohio Valley. Confidence in this forecast is lower than earlier January predictions, suggesting a leaning toward cold, but with the potential for it to go the other way. Warmth in the west and cold in the east are still expected during this period, though confidence isn't as strong. Precipitation remains a bright spot for the southeast, mid-Atlantic, and parts of the northeast, with continued above-average activity increasing the chances of snowstorms. The overall monthly outlook aligns with this, showing cold moving from the north central region into the southeast. However, the Northeast's above average precipitation forecast might not verify, as the region has seen below average activity recently. In summary, we're entering an interesting and active weather pattern. Cold temperatures and increased precipitation in key regions raise optimism for snowstorms, particularly in the South, Mid-Atlantic, and Northeast, while the West remains cold but mostly dry. Let's see how this plays out. For the south central region, I think this forecast will likely miss the mark. And I also expect above average precipitation in the northern Rockies. These areas highlight some accuracy in the outlook, but I believe the Northwest will end up significantly below average for the month. To summarize, I'd say the forecast is about 50% correct. While it gets two areas right, three major areas appear to be off the mark. Of course, the equal chance areas are a safe bet since they indicate conditions could go either way. I suspect we'll see above average activity overall in some regions and a toss up in the north central states and the Great Lakes. Looking at the past 10 days, it's been very cold in areas forecasted to experience below average temperatures for the month. Maine has seen slightly above average conditions, but it's minimal. And meanwhile, the West has been quite warm. Switching to model guidance, there's a lot of storm activity moving from the Gulf near the coast, although some of these storms are staying slightly offshore. The GFS model shifts these storms a bit farther northwest, bringing more systems onshore for the southeast and mid-Atlantic, while the European model keeps them offshore. The truth might lie somewhere in between. The GFS can sometimes lean too far southeast, though it's been trending more northwest recently. The European model's westward trend might bring snow to far southeastern areas, but that depends on accompanying temperatures. As of Saturday, January 11th, the storm system was further offshore than expected, resulting in a bit of a bust for the forecast. Areas in northern North Carolina and southeastern Virginia were predicted to receive 2 to 4 inches of snow, but only got about 1 inch, which mostly melted by the afternoon. Sleet began mixing in earlier than anticipated, suppressing the snowfall totals. Rain started around 2 to 3 a.m., further reducing accumulations. Despite the disappointing totals, it was still the first measurable snow in about 3 years for the region, and the heavy snowfall during its brief appearance was beautiful. Meanwhile, snowfall continues in the Rockies, the north central states, and parts of the Northeast. Some areas in the Northeast received about 1 inch of fluffy snow from this system. On Sunday, January 12th, a brief thaw is expected as a trough in the west creates a ridge across the east, allowing some warmth to push in. By Monday, January 13th, snow showers could extend into the western mid-Atlantic, including areas like eastern Ohio, West Virginia, western Pennsylvania, and western New York. By Tuesday, January 14th, a ridge begins to rebuild over the western states, while a trough moves through the north central states into the east, ushering colder conditions. The 15th looks similar with quiet weather and little to no precipitation aside from possible lake effect snow showers. Activity in the Gulf of Mexico becomes more notable as a low pressure system starts forming. By Thursday, this system becomes suppressed due to a lack of a strong jet stream, making it unlikely to develop further or impact much of the region. With no significant jet stream activity, warmth will start to return to the east by the end of the period. Overall, the pattern suggests fluctuating conditions with occasional snow events in the east, while the west remains relatively dry and warm except for the Rockies. We'll continue monitoring these developments. By the 16th, here's the overall outlook. Very little to no precipitation is expected. As we approach Friday the 17th, we see warmth building across the Great Lakes region, the Mid-Atlantic, and up the East Coast in general. At the same time, colder air begins to push into the west with some snowfall in the northern Rockies. A snowstorm is also expected in Canada, just north of the Great Lakes. By Saturday, activity starts to increase. A trough develops in the west, while a ridge builds in the east, a recurring pattern during this period. The 6 to 10 day outlook from the National Weather Service aligns with this pattern, featuring significant snowfall in the Rocky Mountains and thunderstorms across the Gulf states and parts of the Ohio Valley. This setup suggests a potential for severe weather and the warm and humid conditions ahead of a cold front. Snowfall showers may extend into the mid-Atlantic and Northeast, with thunderstorms persisting in the southeast. Additionally, snowfall may occur in the southern Rockies as cold air dives southward. By Monday, a more dynamic pattern emerges. Cold air dominates the west, with spillover into the Midwest and South Central states. The Mid-Atlantic and Northeast retain some residual warmth and showers, while a low pressure system begins forming over the Gulf. Snowfall is expected in areas like Texas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas, though this forecast should be taken with caution due to the time frame. The low pressure system, fueled by a strong jet stream, is likely to track eastward, bringing snowfall to parts of the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. This could include an ice storm in Virginia and North Carolina, followed by snow for southern New England, including Boston and New York City, areas that have been snow deprived this season. As this system exits, a secondary low forms, adding to the snowfall before a colder pattern sets in after the 20th. Around the 24th to 26th, an Arctic blast is forecast for the eastern U.S., with very cold temperatures and possible snow showers in the Carolinas. While snowfall specifics remain uncertain, the broader trend of intensifying cold seems reliable as we move deeper into January. Leading up to the 15th to 18th, a brief warming trend or winter thaw is possible, followed by a shift to more active weather. Initially, minor snowfall events may occur in the Midwest and Great Lakes, with some snow showers reaching the Northeast. By the 17th to 19th, warmer conditions may lead to thunderstorms, possibly severe in the Deep South. A strong low-pressure system near Hudson Bay could usher in colder air and snow farther south, impacting areas like North Carolina and Virginia. Looking ahead, the GFS model suggests additional snowstorms for the Carolinas and Virginia, though this appears overly aggressive. A more likely scenario involves these systems tracking further offshore or northward, affecting the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast more broadly. While 3 consecutive snowstorms for the Carolinas would be unprecedented, colder air remains a consistent feature through late January. Eventually, the model forecasts a more zonal pattern across the U.S. with a flatter jet stream and average conditions. While this outlook may change, the overall trend points to colder weather and increased activity after the mid-month thaw. New England, including Cape Cod, may experience some light snow this afternoon. Meanwhile, our next system is approaching. Although it doesn't appear significant at first glance, the very high snow-to-liquid ratios caused by the colder air moving in will result in a decent amount of snowfall in Minnesota tonight. This snow will spread into Wisconsin and upper Michigan by tomorrow. The system will track over Lake Superior, with most of the cold wind remaining north of the low-pressure track. However, some cold air will extend into northern Ohio, Michigan, and southwestern Ontario later tomorrow into tomorrow night. While the northeastern U.S. won't be heavily impacted, it could still see some light effects. Down south, lighter showers are moving through Florida today with a brief break tomorrow. By tomorrow evening, moisture will begin to build over Louisiana and southeastern Texas, leading to cool and wet weather for the central Gulf Coast states by tomorrow night. This wet weather will spread eastward toward Florida, southern Georgia, and Alabama by Monday. Severe weather is not expected as the wind flow aloft is not particularly strong and the air mass is too cool to support severe storms. However, some locally heavy rain is possible, especially in the Florida Panhandle on Monday. Snowfall totals over the next 60 hours show the highest amounts outside the upper Midwest. In the West Virginia mountains, significant snow is also expected in the mountains of New Hampshire and Vermont, with local amounts exceeding 6 inches. Lower elevations in these regions may see an inch or two of accumulation. In the upper Midwest, significant snowfall is forecast as well, with over a foot possible northeast of Minnesota's Arrowhead region and into northwest Ontario. The Keweenaw Peninsula could see over 10 inches, while northern Wisconsin and northern lower Michigan may receive 3 to 6 inches. For New England, snowfall outside the mountains will be relatively light, Coastal Maine, central Maine, southern New Hampshire, parts of Massachusetts, and southern Rhode Island may see light accumulations, enough to cover the ground, but not much more. Temperatures remain cold in the west. Southern California will rebound into the 60s and low 70s today, while the Phoenix area stays in the 50s. Tonight, freezing temperatures are expected for many areas except along the coast. Tomorrow will be another chilly day in the region, followed by another cold night. However, the central U.S. is where the most extreme cold will be felt. By tonight, the next wave of cold will push into the Dakotas, with temperatures dropping below zero in northern North Dakota and Minnesota. Tomorrow night, temperatures behind the Clipper system will fall as low as 20 degrees below zero, with freezing temperatures extending as far south as Little Rock and Dallas. Snow will linger on the ground before a gradual rebound begins on Monday. Overall, next week is not expected to be as cold, and I'll show more details about that shortly. Discussing the next cold wave and snow potential, the key takeaway is the arrival of another cold blast with snowfall in the northern U.S., while the south remains cooler and wetter but not severe. And guys, if you enjoyed this one, don't forget to like and leave a comment below. I'll see you all in the next video.